Welcome to the Lord and Richards Show, a program that will enable you to become more financially independent and prosperous from a biblical point of view. Tune in each week to learn how to prosper through good markets and bad. Now, here's our co-hosts, Colin Richards, your biblical investment advisor, and Dylan Schoonover.
Welcome into the Lord and Richards Show. I'm Dylan Schoonover, pleased to be joined by CEO and founder Colin Richards. Colin, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, Dylan.
You know, we're talking investment portfolios, and I think a good investment is a skateboard. Do you know why?
I have no idea.
Because it's easy to flip, Colin, that's why.
Oh my goodness.
So we're going to talk about the wealthy retiree with balancing growth and safety and income. It can be difficult sometimes. Sometimes you hear, well, you get a low yield on that, but there's not a lot of risk. You know, you a lot of times talk about three different choices. You know, you can have high risk, you can have high reward, or you can have safety, and you can't usually have all three at the same time. And so we want to talk about a portfolio for the wealthy retiree and how they're able to maximize their gains, but not have so much downside. So right off the bat, when you see people come in, I think the number one thing you like to say is that people have just far too much risk for being in the distribution phase of retirement. Why is that?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think risk can be measured in two ways, so let's get that out first. When I say maybe they have too much risk, that's for the reason that maybe mathematically we can't make their plan work, because although they may be positioned for the highs of the market, they haven't prepared for the lows of the market. And so what we're going to do as a part of your retirement freedom review is we're going to run your investments through 30 plus years of market history and be able to tell you scientifically, hey, if we repeat any of these pieces of history that didn't go so well, here's what's going to happen. And after running 10,000 versions of your portfolio, we discover, hey, scientifically, you're likely to run out of money before you die. Maybe you've got only a 50% chance of surviving financially. So we don't like that. So that's one reason why people might have too much risk. The other is emotionally. Most people who classify themselves as aggressive still would not be willing to take unlimited risk when presented with that. And what that looks like is sometimes we test a portfolio and we learn that if we repeat one or more of the down markets of history, that they could lose 40, 50, 60, 70% of their portfolio. It can be staggering, and they had no idea they were invested that way. It's just over time they got out of balance, or maybe their investment advisor really wasn't paying attention, and so now they're bearing enormous risk in that portfolio.
Yeah, in relation to that, or in opposite of that, sometimes recency bias can creep in. You know, we went on a 10-year bull run from basically 11 to 21 that really we hadn't seen anything like that since Jordan was in a jersey on the hoops court, right? And so do you have some people that go, yeah, but that happened at a time when I wasn't really focused on this. And so how do you bring them back and go, look, this can be reality again very quickly if you're not careful?
Yeah, well, shout out to Jordan and Wilmington, North Carolina. I lived there once. And yeah, those were good days. But yeah, we may not necessarily want to repeat everything that happened back then, because when people discover, you know, after 10 years of positive returns and, you know, everything looking rosy, we call those a bull market. Mm-hmm. Have you ever gone down to New York and toured downtown and looked around? You can find the bull, you can find the bull right out there on Wall Street, but you can't find the bear. Okay, because Wall Street doesn't believe in it. They don't teach it. So recency bias, meaning you've gotten used to thinking the market will always go one direction. But can we really count on the market only ever going up and never going down?
No, that is not realistic. And so let's talk about asset allocation. You know, you have saved a nice nest egg for retirement, but a lot of people have heard that term, probably asset allocation, but it seems like if you walk into, 10 different financial institutions, they're going to say 10 different things. Walk us through what Lord & Richards financial asset allocation looks like.
Well, before we even get to asset allocation, we want to talk about asset location. Yeah. And so allocation means we're dividing up amongst the 16 different broad categories of investments out there, from real estate to, stocks in publicly traded companies and so on. Asset location, a little bit different. It's about different kinds of money having a different purpose. I like to use the expression, the purpose of money should dictate where you put it. For example, if I know that we want to pay cash for a car and we're going to need that in the next 3 to 6 months, I'm going to keep that money in cash reserves, probably in the bank or money market where it's really safe, really liquid, but doesn't get much growth. Whereas if I know I'm saving for my retirement, I probably don't want to keep all that money in the bank as a location because I'm getting safety, I'm getting liquidity, but I'm not getting much growth, and I want my retirement assets to grow. So there's asset allocation, and then there's actually even more foundational asset location.
Yeah, those are very different, and that's a very good point. Appreciate you pointing that out. How do you go about determining what is best for someone? Because I would say the majority of the time, is it reasonable to say when someone walks into the office where they started and where they finished with Lord & Richards looks a lot different?
I would say the majority of the time. There are a few blessed souls who come in and literally we just give them an A on their report card and tell them, look, whatever you've been doing has been working and your position. But the problem is most people just haven't studied, trained, focused their lives in the direction of building a comprehensive plan. That is a plan that will touch all those areas of life, from risk to income to healthcare to taxes to estate planning. And so usually when people arrive, their portfolio reflects hopefully a successful career of investing and socking money away. That's actually the easiest phase of retirement, to sock it away, because if you can just discipline yourself not to go over there and change it too often, generally your portfolio is going to rise over the decades. It can fluctuate a lot in the years, but over the decades you're going to see it go up. So what typically we have to do is start adjusting that portfolio to reflect a new life, which is a life of withdrawing that money or distribution, and that portfolio should look substantially different than the one that we were socking money away in during our working years.
And those are very important points. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how you make sure that you have the right allocations in your portfolio to balance safety, risk, and growth.
You're watching the Lord & Richards Show, a program that can help you become more financially independent. Tune in to learn how you could become prosperous during good times and bad.
Welcome back to the Lord & Richards Show. We are joined by CEO and founder Colin Richards. It's a privilege to always have your insights shared with us and share with the viewers and listeners. You've got a long Rolodex of experience, not much you haven't seen in the markets, including some big downs and some big highs. And so we're talking today about wealthy, affluent investors and how they're going to maximize their portfolio to be aligned properly to get a good amount of growth, but also make sure they have some safety built into their portfolio. And so when you're looking at someone who walks through the door, who's done a good job saving, and they may have not really known it, but they kind of got there. I always say sometimes people fall into money, or sometimes they're very intentional about saving money, but they've done a really good job of accumulating assets, but they don't necessarily know what to do once they come through your doors. That's where you come in, and the team at Lord & Richards comes in. So how do you take the time to walk people through, okay, congratulations, you've done a wonderful job to this point. Here's where we're going to go from here.
Well, the first step in our process we call a retirement freedom review, and we sit down together and we go over your goals, dreams, values, what's important to you. We then take a look at what you've done so far. Hopefully it's gold star work and everything's gone great in this accumulation period of your life. And then we're going to come back and follow up with a complete review of how successfully you are positioned to make it through retirement without running out of money. And we're going to touch on everything from, your income to your taxes to your estate planning to healthcare to risk. And one of those key conversations is this conversation around risk, because we want to make sure that of all the things that can come in and potentially derail that retirement, this is one we can actually head off at the pass, right? The good old days back when, cowboy movies, right? We're going to head them off at the pass. Well, we know that train is coming, and so we know what to do in advance so that market risk and volatility is not a great big boogeyman waiting out there for you in your portfolio.
Yeah, I think that tees up exactly what we're looking for when we talk about the Lord & Richards safety percentage. Go ahead and introduce that concept to the viewers and the watchers and the listeners and all folks out there in all lands of what that exactly means and what is the Lord & Richards safety percentage.
Thanks, Dylan. It came out of a period of meditation when I was really thinking, what is it our clients want around this area of risk? And what they want isn't perfection. I mean, we know that asteroids can hit and markets can crash, and we call them black swans. So it's not that we can get rid of all the negative things, but by planning ahead, we can actually design a portfolio that will never break through your personal limit on risk. And while most are having a conversation around, well, do you want to be kind of conservative and take a little bit of risk, but we don't know what that means, or moderate risk and we don't really know what that means, and aggressive, we have these very relative things. And so when we sit down, we develop a little exercise where we let you visualize what it would be like numerically to lose a portion of your portfolio.
The pyramid of doom?
We call it the pyramid of doom, Dylan. I didn't want to say that because that sounds so negative, but think of it also as the pyramid of opportunity.
Opportunity, yes.
Because on one side, you're given a choice. These are all the great returns the market could deliver, and they're fictitious. And on the other side, these are all the negative returns the market might deliver in correspondence with shooting for the moon. You could also, fall on your face. And people select a point along there. It's not unusual for people maybe to say, okay, Colin, let's say I'll use my fictitious $1 million easy math example. I've got $1 million, and we get down to 200,000 in losses in a given market, and they say, yeah, that's probably, I wouldn't want to go past that. Now, some of our more aggressive people might go further, and then we got people who literally will tell me, Colin, how about no risk? Can you do that? And yeah, we can do anywhere on that continuum, right? We can get rid of risk, but there's a compromise for that.
Yes.
And so the first thing we do is we establish your personal safety percentage. That is the amount that you do not want to surpass in any down year in your markets with your portfolio. And then we actually design a portfolio that will do that while not giving up the opportunity for growth. There's more than growth and there's more than risk. There's actually liquidity. And interestingly, you can blend in how much liquidity you have that affects how much risk you have. So there are investments that are longer term, we call them longer gestation periods, that come with less risk but still give you great reward over time.
Can I change my safety percentage if in 2 years down the road I have a different mindset?
Absolutely not. We're set in stone. No.
Oh, no.
No, we literally are going to be meeting with you year after year after year, and life is going to change. I can tell you that the safety percentage number that is set by somebody maybe in their 50s is probably going to be a lot more risk tolerant than the number that maybe somebody in their 80s might select. So over time, our preferences and tolerances change.
Do you guide them by the old rule of 100 in that safety percentage? Do you try to consider that as a part of the determination?
It's a neat starting point. It is a good starting point. So people have said the rule of 100 is basically take your age, and that should be kind of the safer portion of your portfolio. So for us, when we talk about our barbell that has safe, guaranteed, abundant sources of income on one side, and on the other side has more aggressive assets that have risk, well, we might want to weigh that a little more heavily toward the safety side as we get older. So that's the rule of 100. So it's a starting point, but then we're going to customize that to an exact percentage based on your feelings and also the math around making sure you never run out of money.
Makes sense. One of the things you said in the first segment here on this show is that there's 16 asset class types. Do you need all 16 to build that portfolio? It seems like a lot, might be overwhelming. How often do you utilize the different classes?
Well, all of them are available to us, but all of them may not be appropriate for every investor, right? So although cash is great and it's one of those, we may not want to stuff all of our money into the mattress, right?
Right.
So it's there and it serves a piece of the pie, but what can often happen is we get so overburdened in one area. And so a pre-retiree or retiree comes in and their whole portfolio is aggressive growth stocks. Well, that's probably not taking advantage of the breadth and the wealth of different types of investments that are out there. But I will say this, and I like to quote Warren Buffett from time to time. He knows a thing or two, been around the block. And he talks about this old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, he, as an investor, is famous for a very small portfolio, but he says, if you are going to put your eggs in one basket, just watch it very, very carefully, right? Well, what we do is, okay, any place where we're going to concentrate some wealth, that's probably going to be a place that's highly protected and doesn't have as much risk. And if we're dealing with risk, we're going to probably try to diversify that.
My house has eggs in a basket right now as these quail are getting ready to hatch. So
I was going to say.
not actual Easter eggs and not eggs of money, although it'd be nice if they had eggs of money when they popped out.
That would be great.
Yeah, so when you're talking about allocation and we're looking to get some safety in the portfolio and get a balance with some growth still, a lot of times people come in and their products are sitting in some products that have a lot higher fees than what we would charge. And so why is it that oftentimes people aren't educated on the costs inside of their portfolio? Is it just because advisors don't have to tell them, or what's going on there?
Wow, Dylan, you're asking me a tough one there. So yeah, I gotta try to avoid throwing my entire profession under the bus. But here's the reality: when you buy a stock, a mutual fund, or products such as certain types of annuities called variable annuities and so forth, all of these products that have risk come with a prospectus. And that prospectus is a great big old document that they're confident you're going to read every one of the words in that 900-page prospectus.
Sure. It's just like terms and conditions when you download an app, right?
Exactly, right? Or all those papers you filled out when you bought a house that you probably should have read. So the problem is that these documents and explanations exist that tell you you're taking a lot of risk and you need to be aware of the fees and all of these things. Unfortunately, a lot of times they just get handed to people and they wind up in file 13. What we do at Lord & Richards is if there's a fee involved with anything that we recommend a client be placed in, we're going to have a full, open, upfront conversation about that before you're ever even invested in it. So some things may need a fee to do their job. That's fine. That's not something that's immoral to have a fee. But we want that fee to be as low as possible, and preferably if we can use assets that have no fees, that's our preference. And then we want to fully disclose everything about that fee. Mutual funds are a notorious example of burying tons and tons of fees under that paperwork. So we end up with paying for the company's advertising, called 12B1 fees. We end up with front-end fees, that can take a big whack out of the client's portfolio. And then, not enough that we whacked you on the front, we'll get you with back-end fees on the way out. So they can really mount up and unfortunately are not often disclosed by the people who sell those.
Yeah, that's often very frustrating. Unfortunately, we're seeing that creep into other things too. It's like when you purchase a ticket and they're like, oh, there's a service fee for this. Airlines sometimes do that where it's like, right. Oh, you wanted the ticket for this cost? Well, no, that's an extra $20. Well, why? Oh, it's a convenience fee for booking it online, yes. Which blows my mind.
And you actually wanted a seat, so you're going to be charged for that.
Oh, yes. You want a bag? Did you want a seatbelt? That's an extra $12, right? So otherwise, it's just going to be hold on to the handles and see what happens. So.
There was a good April Fool's joke about the airline that came out with all standing. And a lot of people bought it. It was out on the internet, and a lot of people bought it that this airline had revolutionized travel with everybody standing up the whole flight.
Standing room only. There we go. That's a great idea. Well, when we come back from the break, we will be all sitting. We can promise you that. And we'll be talking more about the investment strategies you can use to have the proper balance in your portfolio as a wealthy retiree. We'll see you soon.
You're watching The Lord and Richards Show, a program that can help you become more financially independent. Tune in to learn how you could become prosperous during good times and bad.
Welcome back to the Lord and Richards Show for our final segment today, talking about investments and how we make sure we have the right portfolio balance of risk, safety, and growth. Because we all want to get some growth, we all would like some safety, and we probably don't want as much risk when we're older. And so that is something that people don't always realize, but they oftentimes, like you said earlier, carry too much risk going into their retirement years. So when we look at Lord and Richards' process, I like to talk about this so people have a very clear understanding of what we do and why we do it and how we do it. How do we achieve those things? What are you looking at when you're building that financial plan as a Lord and Richards employee, talking across the table to a retiree or a pre-retiree about, okay, here's where you're at and here's where we're going?
Well, it begins with some very good analysis. We call it a retirement freedom review. And in that retirement freedom review, you're actually going to get data around all the key points of getting safely to and through retirement, even on to beyond the grave when we talk about your estate plan. And so it's very important that as we meet together in our first visit, folks really disclose to us what's important, disclose to us those assets, where they're sitting, and then we have our team of nerds, they wouldn't like it, but our guys, actually they're pretty good looking for nerds.
In-depth analysis extraordinaires.
Exactly. Financial planners, certified financial planners who will then take that data and develop a report for you. We call it the Retirement Freedom Review. And in that report, you're going to learn, okay, after testing my portfolio for all of these situations, whether it's a healthcare event, maybe one of us gets sick in retirement. That's something we hope never happens. But who do we worry about? We worry about not the sick spouse. They're going to be taken care of. We worry about the financial hit to the well spouse. We're going to look at your tax situation. Are you overpaying taxes? Are you going to leave behind assets that are going to be, sucked up by the government? We're going to look at your risk, as we talked about in the previous segment, and how do we mitigate and reduce that so you can have more of a carefree retirement as well as your income. So all 5 of these key areas are going to be addressed and must be addressed. It's not really an option. People say, well, I'll just do it on my own. Well, if you're equipped in those 5 areas, great. But most of us who haven't made this a profession are going to find it really difficult to be objective about that data.
I think something that sets Lord and Richards apart, outside of obviously the name of Lord and Richards and the backing of the faith and the component of charitable giving and things that you do, is also that the holistic idea of a holistic financial planner usually doesn't encompass that they're going to work with you on your estate planning, doesn't going to work with you on their healthcare planning, isn't going to work with you on filing their taxes. And so why did you guys bring those 3 elements into the firm and not just say, hey, look, we're going to manage your assets?
Well, it would have been tempting, Dylan, because honestly, the easiest part of a financial plan is the investments. I'm not saying that it's easy, but of those 5 areas, putting investments somewhere is the easy one. Most of us could definitely do that on our own and follow certain principles and be okay until the time comes that we need to pull it out. Then we need a little bit more guidance. And that's where we get into income, which is harder still. And then you talk about tax planning, which involves a level of expertise. So we decided, let's take those areas that people are typically having to run around town to see their estate planner, another meeting maybe online or in person to see their tax planner. Let's bring all this in-house so that people can fuse them together so they work together.
Yeah.
Having a healthcare plan that takes into account your tax situation or your income situation, or having an estate plan that also makes sure that you don't do anything to screw up your retirement, that's vital. And so having that all under one roof really shouldn't have to be a choice people make. It should be something we all do.
Yeah, I think the lockstep of everything working together is fine and much more beneficial than if you do have to go to 3 different places to get the same information. And so credit to you guys for creating and building that structure, because I think it's a huge win for your clients. And so coming into the office, what's an appointment look like? I like to talk about this pretty much every episode, because there's misconceptions of, is there a cost to it? Are we going to be in there for 4 hours? Like, what are we doing? What's it look like? How do we talk to people? Walk us through that process.
Well, we sit you down under some really bright lights and interrogate you.
No, I think it's like the FBI. Okay.
I think that sometimes drifts into our thinking. We think, I want to go to my financial advisor like I want to go to the dentist, right? No, nothing against dentists. We need them. They're valuable service. But I think sometimes people feel like, I'm just going to have an unpleasant conversation. But actually, we have a really pleasant conversation. We get to know you. We get to know what's really important to you. Not only do we start with chocolate chip cookies, which sets the stage for a fantastic meeting. As far
and
as
the
I'm
smell.
concerned. Yeah, delicious. But we're just going to talk about what you love. What really in your heart of hearts is the thing that makes you tick, whether it's what you do, the people that you love, and we're going to get that down. We're copious note takers at Lord & Richards, so we're not just simply sitting there nodding and thinking about something else. We're writing down your exact phrases, and I think that shows the regard that we have for our clients and the relationship that we develop. And to kind of skip through the planning to afterwards, so we build the plan, we design the plan, but then somebody's got to make sure the plan stays on track. And as a part of a team, your advisor and several others are going to surround you with that love and that care and that guidance for the rest of your life. I think people have experienced this sort of one-touch type of financial advisor. I remember, when I was very young, before I even entered financial advice, and I had a little tiny investment, and because I was just a number to that person, I would get just a letter at the end of the year attached to my statement, or maybe just written on the statement, say, another good year, bye. And that was the extent. And I think that a deep relationship that understands our clients is behind why our clients love us, give us great reviews online and with the Better Business Bureau, and just keep referring and bringing their friends and family to us.
So you're saying that it's not just you work with one person, that's it. It's an actual team-based approach, so everybody can facilitate and help and know about the planning process around your journey with Lord & Richards.
Yeah, on a positive, if I talk about the dentist or the doctor, right? A lot of times they have different people that surround you during that process. My daughter went through a surgery last year on her knee, my wife also, and they had one person come in and, take vitals, another person come in and handle anesthesia, another person, but they were all working in beautiful, synchronized harmony, and that's what we want for our clients.
Who would you equate the anesthesiologist to in the financial planning world?
The person who knocks you out? We don't have one of those.
Just looking for similarities. Maybe the admin, I could see the admin in the admin, the financial planner being maybe the person who's assisting the lead advisor, but wasn't sure who put you out.
Yeah, so. we actually don't have an anesthesiologist in the financial.
And on that note, this episode is going to go to sleep. We hope you guys are doing well. We will talk to you very soon on the Lord & Richards Show.
Just pick up the phone and give us a call at 720-372-0400. That's 720-372-0400 for your complimentary retirement freedom review. Or check us out online at lordandrichards.com.
Take the first step toward securing your financial future. Request an appointment today. Whether you're planning for retirement, managing your wealth, or optimizing your business finances, we're ready to help you achieve your goals. Visit us online at lordandrichards.com for your complimentary retirement freedom review. Investment advisory services offered through Lord & Richards Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor.